A couple of days ago, Battle of Normandy was released, and I have to say I'm really happy about that. Not really because of the new map and the campaign and all that, but mainly because this also introduced a new damage model. And in this video I would like to talk a bit about the damage model, what has changed, and will show some examples of the new damage model and how it affects aircraft when they are being hit by 50 caliber in this case, because the patch mainly addressed 50 caliber. Also some more things, I will talk about that in a bit. I will let this gameplay run in the background. It's a mission on Combat Box, on the Combat Box server more precisely. The Combat Box admins were so great that they were pretty quick in setting up a pretty simple mission on the new Normandy map. I will talk a little bit about the tactics which were involved flying this mission, but also when I hit an enemy I will discuss a little bit what happened to the guy and how the handling of the aircraft is affected by the new effects of the ammunition. I started off the sortie at the Manston airfield northeast of Dover, more or less, and I headed down to Dover, and as I haven't seen any enemies there, I was heading towards the French coast and was looking for guys coming over to attack the objectives around Dover. And at some point I saw a speck against the water down low, and I was diving down. In these moments where you dive down that fast, it is crucial that you manage your speed somehow, because especially the P-51 picks up a lot of speed. It's easy to get too fast, either to ram into your prey, which is pretty embarrassing, but it's also quite difficult to judge the distance to the water. And if you dive too fast, you lock up and sometimes you just slam into the water if you're not careful. So I try to manage my speed by not diving too steeply, to do wide turns before I dive really steeply down, and as soon as I dive towards my enemy, I deflect my rudder fully and I try to slow myself so far down that I can aim, that I have enough time to align myself with the enemy, but at the same time, in case I miss or the enemy survives my shots, that I can go through and be safe of his guns. And as soon as I was on the 6 of my enemy, I put my rudder back to neutral so the aiming is easier. I trimmed my plane out and I shot him. And in this case, the bullets went straight through the tail and hit the pilot, and the result was a pilot kill in this case. And this brings us to 2 points of the new damage model. First, the health of the pilot got adjusted. There was a bug in the game or whatnot, and the devs for some reason decided to make the pilot quite resistant to bullets. He could take up to 3 rifle caliber bullets before. This of course had some repercussions to 50 caliber armament as well. If the bullet went through and hit the pilot, you could survive that at times. Now, when the bullet gets through armor plate of the BF-109, for example, the pilot should be dead, as it should be. The armor plate in the BF-109 behind the pilot, and for that matter in many more aircraft with similar armor plates, is designed to stop rifle caliber bullets and not heavy machine gun fire, like 50 cal or the Russian UB shell, for example. So a heavy enough bullet can go through the armor without much trouble, if nothing is in the way. The pilot in the BF-109 has the advantage that he sits behind a fuel tank, but of course there are still gaps, especially at head height of the BF-109, where a bullet can just go through and hit the head and shoulders and upper body. In this case, my bullet must have found a gap somewhere and went right through the pilot. After the engagement, I pushed through and checked my 6 a lot of times because I was afraid to get bounced now myself from up high, but nothing really chased me there. So I went back to Dover, looked around, and at some point I saw an engagement further west, and I think the engagement lower dissolved, but all of a sudden a high Focke-Wulf pushed through the fight above and flew past me. And I don't think he saw me. I chased him then to the east, turned with him, noticed that he's in this wide turn but, and lets me catch up to him. And I decided then to go high yo-yo to improve my angle on him a little bit. And he puts now the Focke-Wulf into this dive. And it seems like he is going for the initial engagement and is trying to dive through. And I can't catch up now very quickly in the dive here. So I lob some 50 cal fire after him and get the occasional strike. And while this is happening in the background, I have some time to explain another point in the damage model. And this is that the bullets of 50 caliber and other IP rounds are now creating larger holes on aircraft. On the aircraft surface, so the aerodynamics are now easier disturbed, but also they punch larger holes in things like wing spars and all this. And as you can see, at some point part of the tail of the Focke-Wulf comes off, and this is something you will see now more often, that things come off of aircraft like flaps or ailerons or part of the tail. So things rip off now when enough volume of fire lands on the aircraft. Before, each 50 caliber bullet only created a hole of half an inch. So, and of course this is not what happens in reality if bullets hit an aircraft. If a bullet in reality hits an aircraft from behind, for example, the bullet will create larger holes first on the surface where it enters, but the bullet starts to tumble, for example, through a wing, and on exit creates a larger hole. And this disturbs the aerodynamics, of course, quite a lot. And this is what you can see now in the game. If you hit an aircraft enough and you create enough holes, the aircraft will slow down. And in this case, not only the speed of the 51 let me catch up, but also the worsening aerodynamics of this Focke-Wulf in front of me. At some point my bullet found his pilot again and he crashes into the water. Another point about the damage model, and I forgot that point earlier, that the aircraft's skin thickness got adjusted. The devs noticed while testing and all this that for some reason the aircraft had a too thick skin. Meaning that bullets, especially when they lost some energy and they are on the way for quite a while, and hit the aircraft at a shallow angle, had a chance to bounce off. The bullets can still theoretically bounce off, but now the aircraft's skin thickness is now reduced by 2/3, meaning that the bullet will have an easier time to hit a wing, to enter a wing and cause damage. After shooting down the Focke-Wulf on the deck there, I made my way back up to altitude and was patrolling Dover again. After not seeing an aircraft for a while, I decided to head towards France again and hopefully to repeat this bounce I did earlier. However, I spotted a bomb-laden Focke-Wulf at almost my altitude. And I scanned the sky behind him to see if there is some kind of formation or if there are more enemies. I didn't spot anything. So I positioned myself, attacked him from the right side behind him, put some shells in, his aircraft burst into flames and he went down. I also pilot killed him. I was flying from this side and attacked him from there. There's no armor plate in the way whatsoever. And in Focke-Wulfs this is a very deadly approach. And yeah, he went down in flames. What I did not see is that I was overflying his formation. So I checked behind him, but I could not check below me, of course. And I had a Focke-Wulf behind me there. But I spotted those guys early enough that I could throttle up and escape toward Manston again. One Focke-Wulf chased me almost to the airfield and peeled off at some point. They can't catch me at this altitude. The Mustang reigns supreme here speed-wise. Above Manston I made altitude again and returned to Dover. I planned to bounce those guys. And however they got into a fight and the fight went lower and lower and lower until they hit the deck. And Basically, as the fight was already dissolved, I saw a chase going towards France again, and I thought I see an enemy on the deck. I was not quite sure. I also thought this might be a Spitfire, but as I dove to the deck, again full deflected rudder not to overspeed my aircraft there, I could ID him as a 109, and I fired from 400 to 300 meters, started hitting him on the left wing but also on the right wing. And here's another good example of the new damage model. The bullets pierce his right wing, his left wing, and affected the structural integrity of the left wing. And as soon as he pulled G's there, I think it was like 5 or 6 G's or something like this, the wing could not bear the weight of the aircraft and ripped off, and was then plunging into the channel. This could happen before the change of the damage model, but it's now more likely because, like I said, the bullets are now creating larger holes on aircraft, also in the structure, which means that like the wing spars are now more easily weakened by the fire. And in this case here, the 109 has only one wing spar, and if that gets a couple of hits in the same spot, the wing spar is not very strong anymore and can't take this amount of Gs. So he plunges into the water. This marks my 4th kill and my last kill, and this is it for the sortie. However, I think I will use the time in my approach to the airfield in my escape from the battle here to talk a bit more about the other points which got changed in this damage model. There are way more points here, not only affecting 50 cal, but also different other aircraft and all this, and I think I will talk about this now. There were also quite a few bugs, especially with BF-109 radiators. The radiators were very hard to damage, especially from further distances with rifle caliber bullets, but also 50 caliber bullets. But this should be fixed now, so BF-109 radiators will run out of water now quicker when they're damaged and easier to be hit. Another thing which is a major change is that some aircraft, especially like larger aircraft like the P-47, but also bombers like the A-20, Ju-88 and so on, were for some reason very easy to damage, especially on the wings. Only a few hits of HE caliber shells on the wing surfaces would create large holes across the entire wing and would cause massive drag. The wings of those aircraft are now way easier to damage. Speaking of very powerful HE shells, the 13mm guns on German aircraft got adjusted as well, because they caused way too much high explosive damage, meaning that the damage would spread out a large area on the aircraft. However, those shells only had 1 gram of explosive filler. This is not much, just comparing it to the 20mm gun, for example. The 20mm gun has 20 grams of high explosive filler, so, or almost 20, I'm not quite sure, maybe 18 or so. But you see, the difference is quite large, and this difference was not visible in the game. The 30mm guns did a lot of damage. This got adjusted, and now they are somewhat comparable to the American 50 cal. However, they create a bit more aerodynamic damage, but since they are slower, the bullet velocity is lower, they don't pierce the aircraft that well compared to the 50 cal. And it feels like that is what you would expect from both guns. So this all sounds pretty pro-allies, if you want to call it this way, but you have to be aware that this also is the case for German armament, which is relying on AP abilities. For example, 1/3 of the 20mm armament of the Germans is also armor piercing, so that multiple armor piercing 20mm hits on a P-51 wing, for example, will also weaken the structure of the aircraft, or will pierce through the entire aircraft and will kill pilots, hit engines, will cause fires and so on. And also the rifle caliber machine guns for the earlier BF-109s will cause more damage. So I think everybody wins here. Another win for aircraft with larger bullets, for example the P-39 or the Bf-109's Mk-108, not Bf-109s but German Mk-108, those shells will also cause more damage now. They improved a little bit how the HE damage works and will now cause more catastrophic damage. I haven't used the Mk-108 that much and tested it a lot, but I heard that it is quite better now. Has still some quirks, especially if the Mk-108 hits the fuselage of aircraft. The fuselage is weirdly sturdy in the game, but if you hit wings or something else, the aircraft is pretty much just dead. And I think this will also help, especially the P-39, where 109s could take up a lot of damage, but if you now... But this should be at least a bit better now. I think overall the game is now in a very good place. We have come a far way. Overall, if I just go back in time and take a look at the entire journey with this game, we have made major progress and I'm pretty happy about this. We went through a low the last 2 years, maybe 3 years at times, in some regards, especially at the G model, which got worse for a long time. And now it's much better. I think the G model in the game right now is the most realistic there is in any simulation. At least air combat. I don't know the other simulations like the Microsoft Flight Simulator if they model G model correctly. But for air combat, be it DCS or other games, the G model is pretty good now. Also the damage model, which was not good the last 2 years maybe or something like this, is now in a place where I say, okay, most things I see is what I would expect of shells doing to aircraft, so we are at a very good spot here. The game has now a new map, has now new aircraft for everyone to purchase, and I think we are back on track here. The last couple of years, like I said, were at times pretty frustrating for the community because we made a step forward and made at times then 2 steps back, and the devs did not listen to the community for a long time or did not acknowledge that they are listening. I think this is also a major problem, but I hope that this state of the game right now is something we can further improve and are hopefully not going back again in some form. It is really satisfying to shoot at aircraft in this game. It sounds a bit raunchy, but it's really cool to see stuff coming off, to see that what you expect is actually happening. But this is it for me now. Looking forward to play more the next couple of days, to test more aircraft. For example, the Hurricane with only rifle caliber is maybe now viable. Let's take a look at this at some point. See you in the next one.